Welcome to Volunteer Friendly Episode 9, Are You Bored? Hey everybody, this is Will Doggett, and the Volunteer Friendly Show is all about presenting questions, statements, comments, for you to feel a little tension, to feel a little uncomfortable, so that you can contemplate them by yourselves, then discuss them with your team. And if you're a worship leader, production person, someone involved in making Sundays happen in a church setting, then this show is for you. Now, today's show, I want to present a question, ask the question you heard at the beginning, that I struggle with all the time. And particularly if you are an Enneagram 5, if you're into that, if you're someone that loves new things, loves learning new things, this is something that you're probably going to struggle with a lot. It's something that I personally struggle with a lot. And that is the idea, that's the question, are you bored? And so before we continue, maybe even pause this episode, click pause on YouTube, wherever you're watching, and just ask yourself, am I bored? Do you feel bored right now in your current job? Now, my wife and I are constantly trying to teach our oldest kids. There's a phrase we say, because my son in particular will often say, I'm bored. We'll be somewhere waiting. We'll be driving in the car. We'll be sitting at the house at home on the couch or whatever. And he'll say, I'm bored. So my wife has this really great phrase where she says, bored is a choice. And I think that's true. Bored is a choice that we make. It's not a condition of our circumstances. And so what I want to try to do in today's episode, and again, the goal of Volunteer Friendly is not for me to present my particular platform or create, build, and grow a platform where I present my particular ministry philosophy, but to have a discussion. And as I mentioned in most of these episodes, if you want to join the discussion to discuss with everyone else listening, then head to volunteerfriendly.com and look for episode 9, and you can actually comment on this particular episode and work through this together in community. So the idea of being bored, you show up on Sunday morning, you do Sunday morning, you leave, you feel unfulfilled. There was no real challenge. You feel like, man, Sundays are just like, it's very routine. We got it figured out. We know that we start the service this way. We do this many types of songs. We do this. This is the kind of production we do. This is what's going to be said. And then we finish, right? And again, as I mentioned, it's really easy to look on and say, I'm bored because these people are doing this thing. Or I'm bored because this certain thing is happening. I'm bored because we do the same thing every single time, and that's the reason I'm bored. But again, I want to go back to what my wife often says, bored is a choice. You're not bored because those things are happening. You're bored because you are choosing to be bored in that moment. Often, and again, it's because we're not challenged. We have got a routine figured out. We do that routine thing. Again, let me bare my soul here for a little bit. Something I tell my wife all the time, and something that we talk about is when things become routine for me, I get bored. When things are the same every single time, we've got a template, we've got it figured out, we've got a good process, I tend to get bored. Now, there's two things you can do in that moment. And the thing we most of us tend to do, I tend to do this, is to look and say, then the solution is we got to change things up. We got to spice things up. We got to tear everything down, break the system, break the process, and just change things up completely. But I don't think that's the answer. I think a lot of us are looking for certain things, certain creative itches to be solved by our church jobs, and that's not their intent, right? So a lot of us are hired at a church to do a certain particular thing, and we go, but man, I wish the music could be better. I wish we could play this type of music. A lot of us are hired to do production at a church, and we go, yeah, but I wish we could have a lot more lights, and I wish we could have even bigger LED walls, or have LED walls, or do these sorts of things. And if we're not looking at that as how can we use those things to lead worship, and how can we use those things to enhance what's going on, and we're looking at it more from I'm bored, right? We're not using LED walls. We're just putting up backgrounds on ProPresenter. So let me change and shape my environment to serve me. I think even as I say that, I think you're getting like, oh, that doesn't feel right. So I wonder how many of us are looking for our church job to be some sort of creative outlet that is filled for us. Whereas I think maybe, what would happen if we tried to pursue something outside of church to provide that creative outlet for us? If we wish music was more complicated, if we played different types of music, what if we joined a band that just like gigged, a couple days a week or one day a week that played the type of music we want? Or what if we just sat at home in our bedrooms or our home office or whatever and just worked on songs that are more challenging for us? What if, from a production standpoint, we reach out to production companies that are local to our area and say, hey, do you guys need any help? This is what I do. And you get a chance to use those tools and those things you really wish you could do that your church isn't currently doing. Right. I think that's something we could look at and consider. Instead of looking at our environment to change to match us, to serve us, let's look elsewhere to find things that will fill those creative niches. And so that our environment's purpose is not to serve us. Our church job is not to serve us. A worship service is not for us to try out the new cool technological thing or production thing or play the type of music that we prefer. It's to serve the people. It's to serve God. The other thing we got to do when we're bored is we got to ask ourselves, have we stopped learning? Have we stopped pursuing new challenges? And again, it's easy to say, yeah, well, there's nothing for me to learn here. There's nothing for me to do here. Well, what if there's something else, another piece of what happens on Sunday mornings that you can learn? Or again, like we talked about before, maybe you need to be learning things outside of your church job to satisfy those creative itches, to find the space to do whatever it is. And so again, bored, I personally believe, again, I try not to add my personal opinions into this show as much as possible, but I believe bored is a choice. It's not a condition of our circumstances. And so here's what I want to do to wrap up, as we often do, or always do on this show, is I want to leave you with 3 processing questions. And these questions, the goal of these questions is 1, for you to contemplate on your own, and then 2, to discuss with your team. And if you want to make that easier, to make that possible to discuss with your team, contemplate by yourself, then head to volunteerfriendly.com, look for episode 9, which is the episode we're on now. And you can download a free PDF of these questions to share with your team. You can share it for free with your team that you can download, and then again, walk through these questions and process them. So let's do that here as we end today's episode. Number 1, and gosh, I got to admit, I've been so guilty of this in the past, and I'm still often guilty of this now. Are you looking for your church job to be your creative outlet? Number 1, are you looking for your church job to be your creative outlet? That's a tough one to answer. I think probably most of us are doing that. I've done that for a long time. And as opposed to finding other ways, I think we might be using our church job to try to be our creative outlet and trying to use our job to serve us. Number 2, what can you pursue and learn outside of your job that can satisfy your curiosity? Number 2, what can you pursue and learn outside of your job that can satisfy your curiosity? Because again, if we're not making our church job our creative outlet, then we've got to have some sort of creative outlet. So what are those new things we can learn, pursue, challenges we can pursue to find that outside of our job? And number 3, because I think the best thing for us to do is to always go, what can I do in this situation? Boredom is a choice. It's not a condition of our circumstances. So what can I do to help? So number 3, what changes can you make to your job to pursue challenges and creativity? So yes, look for things outside of your job, but also right now, here in the moment, what changes can you make? Not to your environment. Again, I'm not saying go use your environment to serve you, to make it more comfortable for you, but what changes can you make to your job, to how you approach your job, to the things you do to pursue challenges and creativity? Right now, the things you're doing, what changes can you make? What changes can you make to the way you approach your job and the things you do to pursue challenges and creativity? Again, if you want a downloadable PDF of those questions for you to contemplate, for your team to discuss, then head to volunteerfriendly.com. Look for episode 9. You can download that PDF for free. And those are questions that you and your team can discuss. And that you, hopefully before you do that, spend some time contemplating yourself. Thanks so much for joining me this week. These are always fun. I hope, again, you walk away challenged. I hope you don't feel like all your questions have been answered. Hopefully you don't feel like I've presented the answer or the solution, but I've brought that question to provide a little bit of attention for you to contemplate, for your team to discuss. Thanks for joining me this week. I'll see you next week, next Thursday, 10 a.m. Central, wherever you are watching this, wherever you're joining me. I'll see you there. Have a great week. Take care, everybody. Bye.